Okay,
Thank
thank you so much, everybody, for attending this webinar, this open discussion as well. So, we're going to share from our side, how we automate, especially like compliance processes with literature, reg intel, vigilance. My name is Ivan, so I'm the CEO and founder of the company. With me is Antonella. She's the growth of director, and it's been helping a lot of companies implementing these processes, during the last years. Before obviously we start, I just want to say thank you to Sean for having us here, and as well as to promote as well the discussion, because I think these discussions are very important for the industry, in order to understand what is possible, what is not possible, and so on. So what I would like to cover, especially with the slides, is what is our experience, and as well cover as well how actually is working in practicality, and some nuances about AI. So what is working and what is not working. So Sean was mentioning before about Baltimore conference, and there was a lot of discussions about AI, a lot of discussion as well how to perform those processes. So for those that they don't know much about us, just to give you a bit of background. So we're talking about this topic because a lot of companies use Medboard. So this is not used by 10, 20 companies. So we have more than 150 companies. We have more than 99% retention over all these years. We are based in the UK, even if we operate globally. And as a person that, myself, I work in regulatory inside of companies for more than 15 years. We comply with certain certifications, regulations, and so on. And obviously we take validation very seriously as well. I will cover a little bit how I got into this as well, because obviously it's because I was exposed to these processes in the past. But one of the key things, for you to understand is we talk about this topic because this is what we do day after day. And this is our focus to help, companies with these issues. Moving to the next slide is why do we do this? So this is the key thing. And those that have been in this industry for more than 10 years, 15 years, probably they will remember when FDA was only releasing a guidance every month or every quarter. And every time there was a new guidance, it was like a celebration. Okay, let's have that guidance, let's review it, let's see the impact, let's put the comments, and let's prepare a presentation. I would say, like, when I was working in big companies, we had time to review the guidance, create a presentation, explain to everybody what it meant, and plan with time, obviously, the actions. Life has changed massively, obviously, since those times. Back in the days, as an anecdote, my first role when I started my career in regulatory affairs, more than 15 years, I was working with a small consulting company with Neil Armstrong here in the UK. And one of my tasks was to check websites and to check all the updates on websites. So this is the first time that I experienced the pain of what it is to go through every single website and understanding what has changed, what hasn't changed, and all those specific impacts that you need to do. And back in the days, it was just collecting in a Word document, collecting in an Excel. And 15 years after, some companies and some people still do the same. Obviously, there are some advance in terms of like technology. So we will cover as well, what it means in this. But obviously, there are like two things that have changed in my view. First is the increase of data and news within the organization that are available within the industry, and as well the speed of those changes. So the speed of those changes have changed massively. As well, their requirements or the demand for having those requirements, that information, and to report this not only internally, but as well externally, that has changed as well. The level of expectations has changed very much. And if we look at the pain points are mostly two across all these processes that we're going to cover, especially for reg intel, vigilance, literatures, and so on, is manual work. I don't know how many of you in your CV has as one of the tasks check manually websites, or check copy and paste from Excel, so check and paste from documents. I think no one of us, because obviously as a regulatory professionals, what we want to use is our brains or capacity of decision making to make decisions, but as well obviously to do different impact assessments. So the first pain point is manual work, especially for those tasks that don't add a lot of value. So obviously, it's not scalable as well, because obviously, if someone learn how to check manually websites or check how to do those impact assessments manually, then if that person gets replaced or that person goes to another department, someone else has to create the same process and keep the same level, which it creates obviously a risk to the organization, but as well, to the team. And as well, this becomes a person-centric knowledge, so it's not transferable very easily across those. And to be honest, this is very tedious, repeated, and boring. Because if you have done this specific task, as I've done in the past, the first time could be very exciting. The second one could be maybe a less exciting, but when you need to do this 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, there is nothing exciting about it. What, as a regulatory professionals, we appreciate is to actually review the information, draw conclusions, and obviously suggest actions, implementations, and so on. So again, there is a core reason as well in terms of this is for helping people with the job satisfaction, with the core value in terms of what they do, for a living. Now, the other interesting pain point is isolated or disconnected processes and data. Means that if you use two different systems that they don't communicate to each other, still somebody has to move that data from one place to another. And guess what? It will be manual. So you will depend on a person doing a very manual task from one place to another. So especially like having a lot of multiple solutions, especially when there was not a lot of all-in-one solutions, it created a lot of in terms of like vendor management, but as well learning, training. So it just creates obviously more complexity to the companies. And if we look in terms of who is actually affected by this, is across the board in any company, as well in consulting companies and so on. So it's regulatory people, clinical people, R&D people, PMS, commercial people, and so on. And all of that represents a risk to the organization. So from the story from Medboard is we started all of this because personally I suffered those, and I thought, okay, there must be a better way to do this, because I spending most of my time actually checking things manually. And obviously this was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. We started Medboard 7 years ago with these processes. Now, what I want to as well to share with all of you is this was our vision from the beginning. So we've been setting as well this category in terms of all-in-one to connect all the data, and as well to use AI and automations to eliminate any specific manual task between those. So our goal is to have an all-in-one compliance and intelligence automation in one single platform. We were the first one to have Reg Intel, literature, and PMS vigilance together. The first one as well adding a reference manager. The first one having a citation manager. And the first one that has everything connected into a product's information and RIMS. So what I'm saying for this is we are innovators creating a category and connecting everything together within a platform. Having said that, we have APIs. So if a company already uses other system that they trust and is embedded, we can connect that. But what we wanted to create is an ecosystem where people can connect all those solutions without the need of those manual steps. Now, there are like four reasons why we do this. First is knowledge access. So back in the days when I was as well presenting to companies or to board of directors, I used to like help them with the strategies for the market. People used to ask, how do you know this? And the answer was much more simple than I spent 30 days researching. Is I just needed, or I knew which document or which guidance or where that information was. So it was actually the information was out there. Obviously, since then until now, technology and AI have changed, obviously, how you retrieve the information and the speed of that information. The second thing is processes productivity. Everybody wants to do, obviously, the processes much faster and more reliable and more robust as well. Why? Because you reduce risk to the organization. And that's a very important part in the compliance, but as well as an organization, operationally speaking. The third thing is company governance. So you want to ensure that the company operates very efficiently, ethically, as well, aligned with the best interest of the shareholders. And the fourth one is job satisfaction. And this is how I relate to this because I suffer these pain points, right? So if you automate, simplify, and connect, and make easier the work and processes, obviously the job satisfaction of those professionals will be much better. And our goal is to automate and as well to simplify those tasks that are boring for the specific professionals, right? So when people come to us and say, I need AI to make decisions for me. And I ask, okay, how do you do this right now? So I copy and paste everything. I check the websites manually, but I need an AI to do make decisions for me. So it's actually the opposite. You need actually AI or automations to automate those specific like collection of information, and then you need you with that context because obviously it needs a lot of judgment, the regulatory area to make those decisions. So one of the key things as well in job satisfaction is it's very important where we use automation AI so the professionals keep feeling obviously relevant, valuable, and as well in terms of like satisfaction with their job. Beyond obviously this innovation and ambition, we have obviously a lot of like reg intel across 225 countries. We cover globally multiple regions, regulatory areas, and so on. We cover as well in terms of company profiles and so on. So we wanted to have a real knowledge access, obviously with what is public out there. Moving to the next one. So this is kind of like representing what I was mentioned before is the advantages of having a single global platform. Again, we are offering this ecosystem, but this is the aim that every company should aim. Whether you take pieces from one vendor, another vendor, and then you put them all together, the future is a whole orchestration of the different processes and connecting all those processes together. And obviously, regulatory professionals, they are focused on making decisions and ensuring that those processes are efficient, but as well, they are operating well. And there is a continuous improvement as well for those processes. So we focus, for example, on our side, we don't focus on consulting. We don't focus on advisory. We understand, and I understand from the years I've been in the industry, that making decisions in the medical device industry in companies is very, very difficult sometimes. Why? Because the context, you need to understand the context, where are the stakeholders, where are the specific issues, where is the past with our organization and authorities. So obviously, what we do on here is to focus on the technology, the AI, and as well in the global data. And when we talk about global data is the hard intelligence. So databases, data that come from public sources that you can easily verify. So that's from our side, that's our job. Obviously, there is an area that is as well soft intelligence, other areas that is the knowledge and experience of the professionals. And that's the big difference between one of you professionals with one of maybe they have less experience. That's why people choose you, because at the end of the day, regulatory is about trust. It's about ensuring to make the right decisions. So moving to for you to all and to understand, what we offer. So we have an area in terms of like global data and a lot of power apps. So from regulatory intelligence, compliance, RIMS, product information, but as well in clinical, literature reviews, reference managers, citation, market and PMS vigilance as well to monitor vigilance databases, a watch list, and everything is connected with a task manager. Why? Because one of the key challenges for companies is not detecting information, but implementing those actions actually after detecting that information. We do as well standards management as well in terms of standards monitoring. I know Leo is in the audience, so I just want to highlight that we cover standards. And then we cover as well, as I mentioned before, to 225 countries. So anything that is published out there, we actually, cover. And one of the key advantages in our platform is real time. So over all these 7 years, we created a system that allow us to be real time. So anything that is being published today, it will be on the platform here, and it will be curated as well. So it's not only about getting anything that is published by the authorities, it's already created within the day in our platform. Now, I want to just move away from talking about us. I want to talk about a bit, what is the importance of these processes and learnings as well for last years. So I just want to simplify as well, because we're going to focus on this webinar mostly in regulatory intelligence, clinical evaluation, and PMS. And at the end of the day, these processes are very, very similar. You need to collect some information, review the information, make some decisions, and update documentation, right? Or databases to show compliance or to show that you have the data up to date. So in terms of the clinical evaluation, PMS, and regulatory, at the end, we have three clear principles: is what it is and what has changed. And this is one of the key things that has changed basically over the last 10, 15 years. Is obviously what had changed. Now it goes at much faster speed, because obviously authorities and sources, they had better means to publish information much faster. So all this automation AI, what is actually creating is more people are able to publish information much faster. The second thing is a core principle for regulatory intelligence, but as well in terms of like literature, PMS, what it means to us, what it means to the organization, what it means to you, what it means to your organization. So whether it's a new paper, whether it's a new regulation, whether it's a new adverse event, what it means to you. That's the judgment, which is very important and remains within organizations. And those are very key risk decisions that cannot let be performed by external AI without any oversight, because that can determine any critical actions straight after. And obviously, the third part is what to do, implement, and most important, as this is a regulatory webinar, to record it. Because if you don't record it, obviously, it hasn't happened. So you do not have the means to actually show that evidence. So these principles actually apply across regulatory intelligence, clinical evaluation, and PMS. Now, if we look into what is happening right now, maybe you feel identified a little bit, and that maybe that's you. Maybe you have a few more colleagues in your team, but obviously the updates that are happening, I always use the analogy of a sea. The waves are not waiting for you. So whether you are looking at the sea or not looking at the sea, the waves keep coming. Whether you are in an audit, or whether you are traveling, or whether you are on a really nice holidays, the waves will keep coming. And this is continuous across different type of jurisdictions. And you multiply that across standards updates, regulatory updates, literature updates, vigilance updates. That creates obviously a pipeline with a lot of information. I don't know if many of you have experienced this increase of updates from like 10, 50 years ago. You can put it in the chat as well if you feel that obviously things have increased over the years. One thing that I want to cover is as well what is the process, right? And many times, and I don't have the animation, sorry, because SpongeBob, it was meant to appear after I said I click, okay, but because otherwise I cannot see the rest of the screens. So many people think automation and AI does like you have a one click, and that's a very complex process, regulatory process, and it's completed end to end. I've seen many times as well people saying, yes, I click one button and then I have a CR that is completed end to end, and that's ready for a notified body. As a regulatory professional, I've been involved not only on the manufacturer side, but as well helping authorities or different stakeholders, and at that level, that feels quite difficult without any oversight. So what is the solution? It's not magic. What the solution is obviously to break down processes and to see where we can use the specific automations and AI. I don't know if any of you had this experience as well, like people like clicking or having these expectations of you clicking one button and you're gonna solve the problem. I have to say it's very tempting, right? Especially when you have a big challenge and say, I wish I could just go to ChatGPT or any tool, and then I'm gonna click a button and the problem is solved. But actually the nature is actually much more difficult. So what I would like, I like always to, and this is one of the central, slides of this presentation. I would like in conferences and different webinars to show how actually you can break down the process, and whether you're doing rec intel, literature reviews, and vigilance, and we can dive in with any questions as well related to them. is you have a process, and the process is very, very similar, as I said before. So you have obviously a place where you need to collect results. You need first to have a forms and appraisal. So the first, before you start, you need to decide what is the flow chart, what is actually the forms that you're going to use, what are the questions that you're going to inquiry that new data. Then you obviously you collect the data, then you will have obviously duplicates, suggestions, you can do filtering, and then you will do a screening in RegIntel as well. It's called triage. You want to identify as much as fast as possible which items are relevant to you, which items are not relevant to you, and focus your resources on the ones that are relevant to you. And obviously, you will need to then read in detail the full text, all the PDFs or the content of that specific news. And then you have different type of areas where you can report, right? So you can do an Excel report, a Word, you can have Prisma for literature. You can extract obviously tables, analytics, or you can transfer that data to a specific compliance databases. So you need to have obviously the list of requirements, the list of standards, the list of regulations, and so on, RIMS or up-to-date information in your RIMS and technical documentation. And between the full text reporting and the up-to-date, obviously there will be many tasks that you need to complete. So that's the process. And as you can see in the principles, if you will look at the simplicity of the process, whether you are doing Reg Intel, literature, vigilance, the process is the same. You have a systematic view to review new items and information and obviously to appraise in a consistent way. Now, if we want to use AI supporting tools during the workflow, there are so many. So for example, we offer more than 10 during this process. So they suggest keywords for highlighting, translations automatically, potential duplicates, screening, overviews as well, PICO extraction. You have a PDF chat mode, forms for answers, data extraction, requirements extraction automatically that from regulations and guidance. It saves you a lot of time. And we have as well AI writing assistance and AI for ask multiple PDFs or to build different type of reports across different PDFs. So as you can see, all the approach that we take in here is not to obviously just one process click on one button and you don't have control, but to have as well multiple tools that depending on your risk appetite, depending on how you feel comfortable with one tool or another, you use those tools that you feel more comfortable or they suit better the task that you are performing as well. So what we always said, especially for these areas, is you need to have a defined process because obviously you can digitalize them that way. Otherwise, if you don't have a defined process, it's quite difficult to do it. And one of the key things is to have intuitive user interface. So in terms of the adoptions, what is very important is to work very hard on the user interface. And from our side, we always take very seriously any feedback related to user interface or any feedback that can enable us to improve the user interface. The user interface as well applies to AI. So AI, I will cover that later, but having explainable AI where you can actually understand where that information is coming from and verify the information, that becomes very important, for regulatory professionals. And again, in that orchestration, that ecosystem that every company is building now with new technologies, AI, automation, what you need to have is collaborative and integrated task manager and as well actions, because then you don't need to duplicate. You can visualize as well or be transparent about the actions and the functions that have been created. Whether you use this for Reg Intel, literature reviews, or vigilance, again, this is the same principle. So we're going to cover around this principle in this presentation. Now, what everybody wants is obviously to have the full integration. So the next slide for me is our proposal on end-to-end compliance and intelligence ecosystem that we do within our organization, right? So there are like four main areas. So first of all, obviously collecting the information. From our side, obviously we cover a lot of data, but we understand as well that some data, it could be through internal sources or through any other source, especially depending on the country, where you have obviously other specific channels. So you need to customize and monitor those updates. You need to have a process, whether it's for literature, reg intel, PMS, complaints. So it could be applied to many different processes for doing the review and impact. And then you need to obviously act and implement any action following those. And then you need to have obviously up-to-date and compliant products information, RIMS, technical documentation, and compliance manager. In products information, I include already descriptions, UDI claims. So because everything in that description applies to any other process as well. So if you are reviewing literature or reg intel, you want to know what are actually the intended use or what are the specific claims for that and products. And you can see as well, I put the products and families in the in the center. The reason is if you link any of those processes with the products, then you have full traceability over that product lifecycle across from the review to the impact to the up-to-date information. So you can just give exact data about specific products at any given time. We don't cover EQMS. We understand the QMS is more looking inside, and then we connect through the QMS processes through APIs. But our vision is a lot of companies, if not all, will move to this into 3 to 5 years because what you want to have is an orchestrated ecosystem where you have control over the whole compliance and intelligence ecosystem, especially for regulatory and clinical. Now, what I would like to cover now in a bit of more detail is understanding as well about automation. So, my background, for those that they don't know, I'm a master's in physics. So actually like coding and all of this as well is relevant, to me, AI and so on. So I always like to, especially for using AI in regulatory, I like to give my inputs or, my insights related to how we can use it. And every time we talk about automations, I think we need to bear in mind that automations means the use of software without human intervention. And I always use some memes, in terms of like ChatGPT and so on, when they said, "Hey, can you do this?" And then, "Oops, I made a mistake." And it goes obviously the opposite, and then everything goes well. Obviously, when you make a huge mistake, there is no going back, especially in regulatory and clinical. So the definition of automation is super important within this context. And one of the key areas is we need obviously data quality. So we need clean and structure. Data engineering, you can do a lot of automation with that. It's very true. And this is an anecdote that I always say that people always come to us saying, I need AI for this. I need AI for this. I need AI for this. And I always put the analogy that is like asking for, I need a plane, I need a plane, I need a plane to go to the grocery store, I need a plane to go to Asia, I need a plane to go to, another city, or I need a plane just to go downstairs to, to pick up the, takeaway. So people are going into this phase of asking AI for everything. And sometimes AI is not the answer for everything that you need. Simply, you may need just a button that just does a deterministic action to have that you need. So for data science and AI, obviously a lot of machine learning, GenAI, and so on, it can be used. So one of the key things I always like to emphasize is if we are talking about processes, so the context I'm giving here is about processes, right? So you can do obviously many different type of automations with or without AI. I keep always like software engineering because it's very deterministic. You validate the input, the output, and it's going to always do the same. But obviously, when we move into the machine learning, more classical, those they use more deterministic outputs. So obviously, you can validate within that specific range. But as well, obviously, the models are more structured, numeric, and categorical. So you can do a lot with that in terms of the machine learning. But as we move to the Gen AI, obviously, they are more like, or they are more structured in terms of like predicting the next token. And it's a big difference. They are stochastic. So obviously, when they are stochastic or probabilistic, human judgment and perception becomes very, very, very important because then it can just give you an output that doesn't align with your context. And I always said, especially in regulatory decisions, especially the critical decisions, require a high understanding and a high judgment to understand the situation and to propose the solution. So this is a big differentiation, especially to make with AI in these processes, right? That not everything or not all the Gen AI can be used for all those processes. And the way we use AI can be actually different. So it can be just to get input, suggestions. The other could be to actually do a process end to end. So it depends really on what is your process. When people ask, I want to, like automate this process, the first question I always ask is, what are you trying to automate? What is the input and what is the output? Because that's going to define basically how you approach the challenge. And then what I would like to cover as well, especially in terms of the automations and AI conclusions, is if you use like software and machine learning automation, obviously everything should have a defined input and a defined output, and that's the beginning of everything. So what is going to look like that process, which ones that doesn't require human intervention or be validated. For example, clicking a button and doing an export. You don't need a human to validate once that is validated. Obviously, you can connect the steps and data automatically when you can, but you can always do actually that automation. So if you require a very high judgment decision making, you don't want to automate that step. You want to have some safeguards. And going back to the first slides, one of the key things when we break down these processes is to have different safeguards and verification points where the users can say, yes, okay, I'm good with all the suggestions for the screening. I'm good with all the extraction of data. And then you have verification points where the humans actually verify and take ownership over the output of that process. So going back to this, obviously, not every process can be automated or digitized, especially the most creative and so on. And it has to be ready to use in terms of reporting and KPIs. One of the key advantages that we have with automation is to have real-time KPIs and reporting. And this is a huge advantage for companies that are data-driven. So if you can click a button and tell, okay, this is my scope, all the regulations that apply to me. You can click a button and name straight away the 5 regulations that are high risk for organization. That will give you a huge advantage, not only to you, not only as well for you to lead the change within organizations, but as well as a company, and as well the perception from the top management could be different. One of the things, and I work a lot with top management in my career, is speaking the same language as the board of directors, the upper management, and so on. And KPIs and metrics are normally the language that they understand much better. So if you have metrics that you can instantly tell them, okay, our reaction time to a new updates in regulatory are 30 days or 40 days. That gives them some specific metric of what is the risk to the organization, right? So then speaking the same language is very important, especially for upper management. And then I want to just to do a final remarks about the Gen AI that on my view, obviously, based on my experience and all these years, as I mentioned before, I work a lot in regulatory. It's always I say that old enough that I work in all these processes, right? Because back in the days, if there are people that they've been working for a long time, the regulatory professional used to do the standards, the technical documentation, the literature, the vigilance, the biocompatibility as well. So I'm coming from obviously that time. And as well, I work a lot into global registration. So like Japan, China, all the different type of countries, LATAM, obviously US and EU. And I'm always fascinated when people say that, okay, yes, I have an AI that can register products in one click or a few clicks across the globe. And I always said, you haven't been actually there because the context of regulatory is as well very social, very political, and sometimes it's about communication. If you've been with colleagues from different regions, it becomes a challenge sometimes, the communication and understanding, what the other party needs. So especially for Gen AI, my suggestion is to use that as an input rather than automation. What has changed massively over the last years is the speed of communication, the speed of the retrieving information. So where it becomes more important, especially the regulatory professional, is analyzing or having the judgment whether this is good or bad information and I can use for my specific task or context. My second advice is to use always enterprise-grade solutions. Very important. Where are you putting those prompts? Where are those going? In the prompts are more risk than any normal search because in the prompt you give a lot of context, you give a lot of information that it can be used to identify the issue. It could be identify it could identify the company that is related to that. So always ensure that confidentiality and privacy, are priority. In my view, outputs needs to always be verified by the user, especially with GenAI. Have a verification, having an output, and then saying, yes, I agree with this, I'm going to use this. So explainable AI, this is having a user interface where the GenAI systems you can verify the outputs with citations, highlighting, referencing, and sources. So creating the systems where you can actually get very quickly from where which chunks of information these are getting. Those chunks is super important because we want to remain, especially in regulatory, in control, and we want to be as well responsible for the actions and the words that we share with different stakeholders. And something I cover and I cover a lot. I have a session in Baltimore about this in the Rec Intel. It was about ethics. AI doesn't know what is right and what is wrong for you. And what is right and what is wrong as well, it depends on the person, it depends on the culture, it depends of a group of professionals. So this is a very important topic where obviously the AI will not understand your full intent, the full context, and what the expert is trying to achieve for this. One of the things that we need to acknowledge, especially with regulatory, is we don't all perceive risk in the same way. And this is very clear globally where COVID happened, right? All of them, all of us, we had the same hazard or situation. But most of countries, they put totally different risk controls. And that tells you, explains at a global level, at macro level, that ethics or risk are perceived completely different by different cultures, different countries, but as well within the same country, there will always be discussions whether a measure, a risk control was good or not. If all the risk, morals, and ethics would have been perceived the same, all of us we would have had the same risk control and the same measures. But obviously, this is the world that we live in, and we are different. So that's the one of the key things. And one thing that I emphasize with in my panel about ethics as well, it's very important always to do the right thing, and especially working in regulatory is pushing to do the right thing. And with AI, obviously, it will not understand whether because sometimes what AI will try to do is to solve the problem in the most efficient way. And the most efficient way could be a shortcut that actually is not more ethically or moral. So obviously it's not a magic wand, it's a tool. That's how I see, especially at GenAI, right? Obviously there could be certain automations, but in my view, they need to be always like verify and validate. And that's why the user interface becomes very important for this type of solutions. And again, for those that you work on those in regulatory, you understand how difficult it is for AI in a very complex projects because they don't call you for the simple task, they call you for the complex task. So obviously our perspective is we need to help more to help in the complex task and to move away from the manual, simple task for the professionals so they have more time to make decisions and as well to plan or to have better planning for the future. So just to finalize, I want to finalize before I want to share a few things that we have with AI, how we automate things. In my view, there are like four pillars that are super important in these processes. So the first one is the foundation is the data. You need organized and trusted data, always up to date. And obviously that's a challenge, but that's for our side is what we provide. But do you need any system that gives you always up to date information, trusted that you can always verify it? The process, you need obviously systematic reviews, whether it's Reg Intel, PMS, literature reviews, and so on. The key thing, in my opinion, is to divide and conquer, to divide the steps and conquer, and to keep it simple as well. And to use the tools that provide value, or for example, in terms of the organizations, they may happier to use on a specific AI tools or not. This is a discussion we had as well into the Reg Intel in terms of the AI governance. So there are like more companies bringing AI governance, and I'm telling the employees obviously which tools to use, they can use or not. Obviously, use the automations and artificial intelligence to accelerate you, to accelerate the processes, not to replace you. Obviously, there are big gains in terms of the automations because you can detect information much faster, you can access information much faster, but obviously there are some risks that obviously you require some verification and you need to understand, in terms of the whether it's missing some kind of information and so on. So it's always requires some research. In terms of hallucination, it depends, because we can hallucinate ourselves as well if we don't recall or remember in our memory. For example, if I don't remember my birthday and I retrieve a chunk in my memory that it says is in May when it's in January, you may think I'm hallucinating, but my problem was in the retrieval of information in my brain. So a lot of hallucinations coming from retrieving the wrong information. And this is always what is important as well, always to verify. And in my view, not because obviously I've been working regulatory affairs for more than 15 years and I have obviously like key roles on those, but the regulatory professionals need to keep as the decision makers, need to keep in control and as well the guardians of those processes. So just having obviously the metrics and the control, but obviously like keeping the regulatory professional as the important actor. So as well, the process must work for the professionals and not the other way around. So remember that example I gave you that some people were asking the AI to make decisions, but they were checking manually all the websites, on the net. So it should be the opposite. Let's use the machines and the AI to do that hard work and the professionals to actually make the decisions. So this is the end of my presentation. I wanted to show you few things that we do with AI. They are very cool. And then obviously we can take any questions after. One of the key things I see these processes or using AI is to identify faster the risk and opportunities. That's the main role of Reg Intel. You look at that, and as well to have faster compliance, but as well better compliance. So it's not only faster, but as well better compliance by having more access to information. So I hope you like the presentation, the slides. Obviously, welcome any questions. What I would like to have is like 7, 8 minutes. I show you some cool things that we do with AI, and then we can take any questions after. And now I need to learn how to share, right? So if I'm sharing this screen, I'm sharing my screen right now, right?
Perfect.
Okay, good. So our platform, I guess maybe I did this with the red. I don't know who did that. Maybe that was me. So this is Medboard. Obviously, our platform is huge. I just give you like a few things how we use AI, right? So the first thing is we have a huge database with a lot of information. We have research in terms of like search. So you can look, for example, if I want to know like a clinical evaluation, for example. Um, this is a deterministic search. So I always emphasize if people want to find specific documents, the best way is to use a deterministic search. If you want to do a bit of research, what is better is to use like some kind of like AI search and so on. So I'm going to put an example, for example, where for example, the registration steps for medical devices in Brazil for a class 2. And it's going to retrieve from all our databases and formulate an answer with the specific citations. Again, what is important from our side is always give you the citations because you have the right to disagree with the AI. So the AI obviously may not be right in all the contexts and so on. So you can see that we can provide an answers and questions and follow up and so on. Other area that I want to cover that is helping a lot, and this is very linked to the specific that we talk about the scope, right? So if I have a scope with all the regulatory areas, all the countries that we cover, everything comes in a dashboard, right? So it's already in here. You can create as well your appraisal criteria with your specific questions. You can as well add, the specific context, okay, this is my company is this. and then you can give as well more context to the AI. So if you have a specific, for example, guidance, so let me look for example, like something that is more a guidance, this one. So the AI can be used first. A lot of automations has happened here, and there is AI that you use in the background, but it just helps you to have all the information at your fingerprints, at your fingertips. So you have already your FDA guidance. You can click the AI to provide you a summary as well with the AI assistant. You can ask follow-up questions. Does it cover um, UDI. So again, having the ability to retrieve information super fast, it will just allow you to retrieve the information much faster. If you have created forms, for example, in our case, there is a systematic review, so you can decide whether it's relevant or relevant or full text. One of the cool functions that we have with AI, you given the context, it can decide whether it can suggest, like backing back to our discussion, whether impacting your QMS. So in this case, I portray myself as an orthopedics company, and it's telling me that this is about weight loss, so it has nothing to do. So the suggestion is probably not. In order to comply as well, EU Act and many others, you can use the suggestion or not. So you don't have that obligation. And we always specify when the AI is used or not used. So as well, you have, all the questions. So it can just give you all the suggestions as well based on that. If I go to, for example, the next one, you can create tasks and actions and so on based on this. For example, this one is about PMS. I can as well do very quickly the specific summary, and I can answer these questions, right? So this is about PMS. So potentially this is going to say yes, because obviously, yeah, because it's applying to any medical manufacturer. And this is where we've seen as well accelerating these processes to answer questions, much faster that are linked to your organization. In this case, I put examples of my processes. So can be put in my in the account, or it can be linked through an API. So it can tell you likely it's going to modify or it's going to impact this SOP, and this SOP because X, Y, and Z. Again, you can agree or disagree, but you have a starting point that can be used as well as a food for thought as well within within the organization. We use as well different type of AIs as well. I don't know. We have in here. We don't have in here any translations. For translations. So you can use as well for any translations as well. So automation of translations that's super fast. Obviously, that helps to understand what a specific regulation is about. You don't need to have a certified translation to understand whether it's impacting or impacting, or whether you need to speak with your colleagues in Japan. So this enables to have obviously faster communication and faster action as well in here. One of the areas that we are working quite a lot as well is when I was talking about metrics is obviously having flow charts to decide how many items you receive, how many items you have done as well. Having automated metrics and this is through AI and other automations, that can tell you whether you are in compliance or not in compliance, and what is the end date, what is the date of enforcement, what are the specific applicability dates. That gives a massive advantage in terms of like communications, across the teams. And then we have other AI tools that help you to, so let me see in here. So I'm going to clear my filters in here and select the relevant to report as well based on the inputs that you have provided in the answers to draft something around those using those inputs. So again, what we always use is verification inputs to provide the next actions for that. So you have for introduction, so it will just summarize all the outputs that you have provided on those answers as well in here. So again, it's about accelerating. We have different type of report options as well to use in there. And then one of the AI tools that we are finding that people are liking very much is, for example, in their compliance manager, is to have, for example, if we look into the NDCG, is opening a specific guidance, and then we have tools to extract regulatory requirements. Sometimes this takes a lot of time, but if an AI can extract all the regulatory requirements, give you a citation, give you exactly where is that citation, and then put in a tabular format, it just helps you massively in terms of the speed. It's not replacing you in terms of like making decisions, but it just gives you the citation, the summary, and the specific requirements and the citations where that information is found. One of the things as well we find as well very interesting is when you can inquiry multiple documents at the same time. So, for example, if I work in UDI for contact lenses and I have these three documents, I can ask AI for these three documents at the same time. You know, where are their requirements highlighted? Um, so I can ask about those documents, go inside of each document. So this is a very agentic process that looks into each document and summarizes the information, across different papers. You can do this with not only regulatory documents. Our goal as well is to use this to draft, work instructions, SOPs based on specific requirements. And as well, you can use this for literature and references. So this is very effective as well to summarize papers across different type of areas. So I would like, let's wait for the AI to start writing. I will show you very quickly as well, so you can just see how's the answer. And the last thing I wanted to show you, vigilance for literature reviews. We find this again highly effective, especially when you have a lot of articles, to use a AI screening that can learn from your reviews. So if you have, you're likely to say relevant, not relevant to specific articles. It learns with you in that process, and it's going to give you a suggestion based on that. As I mentioned before, one of the key things, for us as well is the AI assistant that it just extracts the information. You can chat. One of the things that is never talked is about the fatigue of professionals, right? If you need to review one article, it's fine, or one regulatory update is fine. When you need to review 10, you are a bit more tired. You need to review 20, a bit more tired, 30 more tired. If you have a tool that extracts the information all the time, obviously this fast, you will be able to extract the information much faster and verify the information, much, much faster. And if you have, for example, a different type of answers, for example, in this one, and then you have the full review in here, again, you can ask the AI to extract what are the limitations of the study. Where is this for the same device? And it's going to look for that specific information within the PDF. So, for example, is there any limitation in the study? I can use this suggestion, and now it's going to give me the specific citations. So I'm going to wait for the answer. So if I click in the citations, it should take me exactly to the limitation. So it takes me exactly what it is. I can verify the information, agree, disagree, tweak things, and then obviously put that as an answer as well. So for example, I put my device was Natrox, so it's identifying that this is Natrox, and it's taking me to exactly the paragraph in there. So this accelerates, not replaces obviously professionals, but it makes the process obviously much faster and more in control, and as well reduces the fatigue of the professionals. So in the same way as I showed you for the report before, you can do as well in here a draft report of all the articles that have been evaluated and so on. So this is just a sample of all the AI, different type of AI tools that are integrated within the processes, because in our view, the most important thing is to have very well structured, very good architecture, orchestrated processes that communicate with each other. So I know that it's 2 minutes to the hour, but obviously happy to take any questions. And as I said, like not only from provider, we do AI, a lot of innovation, and I see people in the audience as well that they've been helping us as well, with inputs and suggestions over the last years. But as well from a regulatory professional on my side, I've been working in regulatory for more than 15 years. So happy to take any questions. I don't know, Sean, if we have time, but obviously happy to as well to cover any question after either Antonella or myself after this session.
I'm happy to hang out for a few minutes. If anybody else wants to drop, I understand. I thank you all for your time today, and would like to remind you that next week we're going to have James Pink, who's going to be talking about some amazing stuff that I don't remember offhand. But so just to let you know about that, and then I'll say any questions for even. I believe there was one in the chat that I saw. um, which was just curious if the platform is AI native or just AI enabled, powered, driven. Okay, well, I'm not sure what the difference is, but yeah, good question. You know, I mean, I would say, probably like most of the platforms, AI has been added in the last few years since ChatGPT and the LLMs have really opened up and become a lot more accessible and that sort of thing. But this is an amazingly robust platform that you built. Who primarily purchases this from you and is do you have like a
Yeah, manufacturers, regulatory departments, clinical departments, vigilance departments, and commercial departments as well. So medical manufacturers, we have as well, regulators that they use the platform. We have as well consulting companies that use the platform. So we want to have an inclusive platform where everybody uses it, but as well, they can share the learnings across the industry. Because I think one of the important things with adoption is to make this accessible, across different stakeholders.
Okay, well, I know we have a lot of consultants on the call, so if they want to reach out to you and see how you guys could work together or collaborate or they could use the platform, open up that channel, what should they do? Should they email you?
Yeah. We collaborate with a good number of trusted, consulting or partners as well. So, so happy to collaborate as well. So they can reach to Antonella or myself, for that, and as well, for medical manufacturers, we partner with them to improve their processes, to evaluate how is their process, whether it is in a good fit, for adopting digitalization or technology. So yeah, we're happy to provide input and to help because at the end, what we believe is if we can have better processes, obviously this is going to impact into patients, into organizations, and everything is going to be more in control, and the risks are going to be identified, but as well the opportunities much faster.
Well, I think we're about out of time. If anybody would like to be followed up with individually, please just contact me in the chat, and I'll make sure that I pass along the chat file to our speakers. I want to thank everybody again for their time, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.